What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Bad Marketing Podcast. I have an extremely special guest. I've been trying to get on the show for over a year at this point, all the way from Ohio. Just flew in, experienced Atlanta traffic, midday, not even rush hour.
Midday.
Just so you can get a little taste of how it is down here.
Everyone's on the way to the lake.
It seems so, right?
Yeah.
So came all the way down from Ohio, Mr. Tyler Smith. Thank you so much for joining us, dude.
Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited. I don't want to spoil too much of a background here, but Tyler, let's just say, has been involved in some crazy e-commerce brands, some crazy brands, some of them upwards of almost $1 billion valuation, involved in crazy amounts of sponsorships, crazy amounts of media buying, built his own brands, sold his own brands, running so many other brands. There's just so much knowledge inside of your brain. We talk so frequently. You're one of my favorite people to just go back and forth with and just jam on some cool ideas. So
that's good. I hope I'm not annoying you. I get like ideas at night and text you.
No, those are my favorites, man. Good. Those are my favorites. So I'm so glad you're on the show, man. Just want to start like into your journey, because each part of your journey has like a completely different lesson, a completely different takeaways of how you're growing those businesses and how you're exiting them, etc. So you want to take me back to like how you started. I don't want to spoil too much of the next stuff because it's gonna be really good. But take me back to like where you started, how you even got into this game, online world, etc.
Take you back to the very beginning, and you're right. It's kind of been like a chapter book, and it's almost like seasonal. So many things have happened over the years with Amazon, Facebook, TikTok, and it's like every year is a new season in my ecom journey. So if I had to go back to the very beginning, it'd probably be like 2012, and so I was working at a distribution company. And I had like a real low quota. I was a new guy on a sales force. We were selling fitness supplies. We were selling some lightweight medical supplies, things like that. And so I had a very small quota. It was like 30 grand a month or something. And it was July, I believe. And like the 5th day of the month, some random guy cold call out of the blue places an $18,000 order with me. I didn't think anything of it. Everyone just told me I got lucky. You know, that happens now and then. Next day, he calls me up and doubles the order. So I'm like, what do? You just helped me hit my quota in 2 days for the whole month and then into next month. And so he's like, oh, I sell on Amazon. You know, I'm a dentist, blah, blah, blah. We, go down the path of the story. And I'm like, Amazon. So I start doing research. I started buying on Amazon at that time, but I'd not sold on Amazon. I didn't know anything about selling on Amazon. And that's where I decided, well, I see 100 stores, and this is back before map pricing was screwing with retail, before you had rogue sellers. This is the Wild West. And so I was like, well, this is one of hundreds of sellers that I see on Amazon. So I just start cold calling other sellers, and I'm like, hey, this guy bought this product. You could try selling this product too. I see it's ranked very well. And that started my journey. And eventually the company I was at took notice of it, and we formed a division within that company where I just ran all the sales to Amazon sellers. So for a couple of years, I was solely focused on Amazon. And then Facebook came. And I started seeing Facebook ads probably like 2013, 2014. And I'm like, wow, people are really starting to make money with this. And eventually in 2016, I got brave enough to venture out on my own. And I wanted to start an indoor garden company and run Facebook ads to it. But once I got out on my own and I started doing Facebook ads, I'm like, okay, it's very hard. I knew nothing about raising money. I was like, it's very hard going from where I just sold product to trying to raise money. And I shot myself in the foot. It never got off the ground. It didn't do what I wanted it to do. So I did what everybody started doing at the time in 2016, and I started running Facebook ads for businesses.
Hey, that's what I did, baby.
Exactly. And so I got started locally, and I was running Facebook ads for restaurants. I was running Facebook ads for local businesses, and it did pretty well. And then eventually, when I started seeing Facebook ads for some of these other brands out there, like Jazzercise was one at the time, I replied to their Facebook ads, and I would just say things like, oh, you have a typo in this ad or something like that. And that would get somebody to call me. And that's how I ended up closing my first couple accounts in social media marketing. And so I had a couple.
I did the same thing.
Did you?
Yeah, it was the smartest strategy, dude.
Yeah.
Like
you just engage somehow.
Yeah,
like, hey, you got a typo. Or
hey, try doing this on your ad, and I think it'll get better results. You know what I mean? I'll even DM them specifically with the ad and be like, hey, I think you guys should do this.
Exactly. And that was before like all the cold outreach email strategies that you see today. And it was just whoever could get to them first. And so that was kind of how I got started with Facebook. And eventually my non-compete for Amazon ran out. And so I started getting into the Amazon world, and I started looking at, okay, how can I, start working with brands to help them there? And this is at the time where there were rogue sellers, where, Voorhees and the like were just coming out with e-commerce control programs, and everyone was kind of struggling. At this point, it was 2016. Everyone was like, hey, Amazon has value, but we still don't quite know how to clean it up because everything was convoluted and dirty still at the time. You had a ton of sellers. You didn't know who was who. People would call you up from a pharmacy, say they're buying it for their stores, and then put it on Amazon. So it kind of became a challenge, and I was like, I don't want any part of that. It was too much work. I just wanted to do the marketing because I knew how to do Facebook at the time. I assumed I could keep doing well on Amazon.
Yeah.
Amazon was kind of easy to learn on the marketing side, knowing, having been in that before and having done Facebook. So in my mind, I was like, I could clean up here. And so I started going to my clients saying, hey, I'm already helping you here. Why don't you let me help you on Amazon? And so I just expanded services. And I thought, okay, if I'm making 10 grand a month, maybe I could make 20 grand a month, just doubling my services to people. And that went pretty well. I say that was a smarter move on my part, but I spread myself way too thin. And in doing that, I got super stressed out. I didn't like what I was doing anymore. And I was like, I don't own any of this at the end of the day. Like if Facebook shut down or Amazon shut down, I don't know how I'd pay my mortgage.
Yeah.
I don't know how I'd eat. So that is around the time where I was like, I need to get involved in a brand. And right around that time, one fell into my lap. And I had a client called Clovo, and Clovo was it is a sleep patch company. And at the time,
tell me more about that, because we actually do marketing with you guys. So
we can.
I think it's a really cool product. Yesterday I was slamming down the apple cider gummies still.
Okay,
they're so good.
So actually, that's something we should talk about too, because moving into gummies was an epic failure on my part. I took a patch company and tried to make it a gummy company. I thought it was Lamborghini. I thought I was going from tractors to racing, because that was the rage at the time.
Yeah, it was gummies. Everyone's making gummies.
Everyone started making gummies. And so I'm like, we just need to make gummies. It'll save the company. It'll double the company. Huge failure.
But your USP was the patch.
So that was the lesson with Clovo, was USP, and its unique packaging. So it wasn't even necessarily the application the ingredient delivery of the patch. It was just having a patch which is different than a gummy or a pill or a tablet, and it got people's attention. And then there were studies published showing transdermal melatonin works better for some people, than oral melatonin. So once that study came out and it was on the NIH website, it was like, hey, this is really cool. This is a validated thing, and other people started to take notice. And that was all right around COVID. So long story short,
what was the lesson there? The lesson was
with that, with the gummies, was, I would say, don't overreach. It was probably stay in your lane.
How would you have done it differently? Like if you had to go back and be like would you have, for example, would you have gone and marketed the gummies without making the gummies to see if people would have bought the gummies, or like?
I could have tested. Yeah. We definitely could have tested. We could have done it smaller. I just immediately flooded the email database thinking everybody wanted gummies. And I learned patch customers were not gummy customers. And it's different to convert somebody for a gummy than it is for a patch. And I ignored my customer. That's a big part of the lesson. When I surveyed people, I found out, and I launched the gummies without surveying people. When I surveyed people, I found out that the number one reason that they were buying the patches is because they've tried everything else and it did not work for them. So they saw gummies and they're just like, another gummy.
But patches, like, this is new.
Exactly.
This could work.
I've tried the Ollie gummy. I've tried this gummy, that gummy. I've tried oral melatonin.
Tried pills, yeah.
All of it, exactly. I do sleepy time tea. So basically it became people were trying Clovo because they figured the delivery mechanism would bypass the stomach and they wouldn't have the same issue with the melatonin. So that was a big learning lesson for us, was listening to the customer.
So listen to the customer and probably test it before you launch it. I'm an advisor to a pretty big company, and we just had our call yesterday, and I told them to open up an entire new division of the company, which is going to be pretty extensive.
Is it a product company, service company?
It's a digital company. Okay. It's a app with a membership, etc. And I basically said, listen, I think we need to go into this vertical. I said it 6 months ago, but you guys kind of were like iffy about it, and so I don't want to push because I just became an advisor, but like here we are. I think this is the best move. And they're like, fuck, you're right. Like, we have to do that.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, I'm going to start developing it tomorrow. And I'm like, no, stop. No. I was like, just rebuild the marketing funnel for this purpose.
Yeah.
And let's run ads and see what CPA is. If we can drop CPA by half to get that customer versus this customer, and we still have both ecosystems operating inside of our company,
Interesting.
that's worth building an entire company. I was like, well, refund them all. Who cares?
Yeah.
Like, let's lose 30 grand to figure out if it's worth building an entire division of the company.
Got it.
You know what I mean? And so now, instead of going and doing that in the next 24 hours, we'll launch a funnel, multiple funnels, to try to acquire customers. And if we say, dude, we can get a customer for that for a third of the price we're getting them for this, we're moving the entire dev team over to that to build that product.
How do you know when it's time to go from testing to all out, balls to the wall, this works, let's run it, go?
The metrics have to make sense, and the TAM has to make sense. So total addressable market. So like the TAM for our original product is 23 million people in the US.
Okay.
The TAM for the secondary product is already 80 million people in the US. And that's happened in the last like few years. It was like nothing, right? And so I'm like, dude, if the TAM is already 4x our current TAM, and it's been 2 years, like, it's only going to get bigger.
Yeah.
And so we have a way bigger market to play in. And so if I can get the finances to make sense on the front end, then we should completely go all in on acquisition for this, as much as you guys don't want to, because it's not your brand. Like, right now, we're trying to take the company from $25 million valuation to $200 million valuation. It's not going to happen in this TAM.
Interesting. So if the TAM cohort that's 80 million for the new product starts exceeding exponentially the cohort that is 20 million TAM, would you just cut off the 20 million?
No, because it's still profitable.
Okay.
Yeah, they're two different product lines. It's like selling shoes and shirts.
Got it.
It's like, if my shoes are still going to net me a few $1 million a year, I'm not going to just kill them because shirts are making me more money.
Got it. And I think that's something I did not understand with Clovo, was I had to market the gummies differently than the patches. I tried running the same exact marketing to the gummies thinking it would work, and it didn't. It was drowned in a sea of sleep gummies. This is, the glory days of private label. There were so many sleep gummies on Amazon. There still are. There's like 3,000 sleep gummies. Oh,
so many, dude.
You search sleep gummies, you get 3,000 plus results.
Yeah, it's over.
So it's hard to stick out unless you have a well-known brand. And Clovo was and is a well-known brand in the sleep space now. But at the time, I would say we were just known for patches. So there was no reviews really on our gummies. Nobody knew if they should trust them. And honestly, I just thought it would be a big hit, and that was just me making an ego play, and it failed. And so that's when
ego, sure, but also market. You looked at the market, you're like, everyone wants gummies.
Yeah.
I got to give them gummies.
But I looked at the market wrong. I analyzed it wrong. I looked at the macro. I did not look at the customer insight data, because I wasn't running any. I thought I was smarter than everybody at that time. Like I was winning Facebook ads, winning Snapchat ads. I just thought I was king of the world with some of these patch ads, and then you run all the same stuff for gummies, and it tanks, it flops, and you just lose your shirt on it, and it makes you think, why did I do this? And the fault was my own, because instead of actually talking to other people, I just got a big head about it, and I said, let's go do this, and it failed.
Hey, lesson learned, though. But you still went on to exit that company.
Still went on to exit the company. The gummies grew, nowhere near the size of the patches, though. There is still a loyal following for the gummies. And, we still love the gummies. And my business partner for Clovo and I, we love the whole gummy line. We tried apple cider vinegar gummies. We tried elderberry gummies. We did a kids multi-gummy vitamin gummy as well. And so, yeah, we tried it all. We just took on too much and didn't analyze our customer base. We launched this whole line of kids gummies at the same time without ever asking our customers how old they were. So we ended up doing our first survey probably like 6 months after the gummy launch, and we realized 70+% of the customers were over 50. So why did we have a kids gummy that we were marketing via email when everyone's kids were my age?
That's crazy, yeah.
So if anything, they had grandkids. So that was a big failure on our part. And it ended up growing. It grew organically, which is, I think long-term, maybe a better route to grow. But it did not grow as quick. So it in my mind, I don't want to keep calling it a failure. It was just more of a lesson than anything.
Yeah, I agree. But then you ended up successfully selling the company.
Yeah. So anyway, I'll go back to the original storyline there. So I got involved with Clovo, and we started growing it and experimenting with it. And at the same time, I'm like, okay, I need to devote more time to Clovo and growing it because the company was in debt at the time, and the company was essentially worth nothing at that time. And I knew it needed a lot of work. So I said, okay, where can I go, come in off the road and, really take the reins at a company and still have time to do Clovo. And that was HyperIce. And so I came on board with HyperIce, and that is just an absolute rocket ship. And so in tandem, I grew both of them at the same time. I was growing I'm growing HyperIce, working with an amazing team. I'm working with people from Nike, Gatorade, like the huge brands, just smart people. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't the smartest guy in the room in my own mind. And I was like, okay, I can learn a lot from these people. And that really snapped me out of this like ego play that I was going on. I was kind of just riding the wave of Forex ROAS ads.
Yeah.
You get on a winning streak and you get a little ahead about it.
You're like, I'm untouchable.
Yeah, and I was younger. I was probably like 27, 28 at the time. And I just thought I was a little Mr. King of the world. And then, when your ads start flopping, you realize you're just a media buyer and you have to make this shift into being a growth marketer. And working at HyperIce, I was amongst some of the best growth marketers in the industry, in my opinion.
What is HyperIce for those that don't know?
So HyperIce is the leading, I guess, sports recovery company in the world. So they were one of the first companies. I think they were the first company to have a vibrating foam roller, and it started on Kickstarter. And it's called the Viper. It's still one of their best-selling products today. You could look it up on Amazon or on their website. And basically, the thought there was you have this market of $20 massage therapy tools that everyone has one. They have like a foam roller in like the corner of their office, or a cane for their back, like a TheraCane type product sitting around their house. So they actually came in and applied scientific principles behind them and made them automatic. They made them electronic. So you had the vibrating foam roller in a sea of $20 foam rollers that used to rule Amazon. You had a $200 foam roller that promised, and I don't want to butcher the number, but it's X amount more myofascial release. So meaning your muscle fibers are going to break down and repair at a better rate. And some of the videos that we ran at the time just made it go viral. Like for instance, we were doing like FLIR cameras, infrared cameras, and we were showing side by side somebody using and this was in our Facebook ads, and I think they still run these to this day, a regular foam roller on the left side of the screen and a HyperIce foam roller that's vibrating on the right side, and you saw just how much more activated the muscles in the legs were, and you were like, oh wow, this works. And that is kind of the HyperIce initial launch into that world. And then came the massage guns. And then
the massage gun came after.
Yeah, so the HyperVolt came after. And then came, the HyperSphere, which is the one that looks like a little cross ball. Yeah. So you're launching all these innovative recovery products.
And for everyone listening, they're also the recovery for your legs. What's it called?
Normatec.
Yeah. That's a HyperIce thing too, right?
Yep, Normatec.
Everyone wears those all the time.
Exactly. And Normatec was acquired by HyperIce. I want to say it was 2020. It could have been 2019, but I believe it was 2020.
Okay, yeah. So every time you see like these big athletes and celebrities laying down with a giant black thing on their legs.
Conor McGregor just posted it the other day.
Posted it the other day.
Yeah, he was getting his makeup. He posted the makeup getting done for Roadhouse 2. And which is a hilarious movie. Not as good as Roadhouse 1, but hilarious movie. And they post him getting his makeup done for like 2 hours or something, and he's wearing the Normatex the whole time. So he's just going all out on recovery.
Are they sequential, the movies? Like, do I need to watch the first one to know the second one? Or
No.
Cool.
They're totally different. Have you never seen Roadhouse?
I want to say I have. It's just been so long.
I'm gonna have to fly.
I'm a big movie guy.
Just to watch Roadhouse with you. It's Patrick Swayze in his prime.
Dude, I feel like I've seen Roadhouse, man. I've just
seen
a bouncer. So many movies, man.
Okay. He's a cleaner at a Roadhouse type lodge at a bar, and it's just
maybe
everyone watching this has seen Roadhouse.
Yeah.
So I won't explain the plot of Roadhouse. Yeah. I'd explain it poorly. But
I'm definitely gonna watch it. Roadhouse.
You got to watch Roadhouse too. So that's one you watch with a couple of beers.
Cool.
Yeah. So, but anyway, so like you said, athletes wearing the product, posting about it. that's what started to make these products go viral, because you're selling the leading tech in recovery. And so the mindset for growth is, well, who needs to recover the hardest? Who works the hardest? And that's where HyperIce started signing lots of these big athletes.
Like who?
So at the time, at the inception, if you look back, it was people who were very popular at the time, like Blake Griffin. And if you look now, or at least when I was there, our roster included a ton of people from CrossFit. We had a ton of Peloton instructors. We had the people that you see every day in your life. If you're like 30 to 50, you've seen everyone there. So you've seen everyone on that roster. From NBA players, NFL players.
You had Patrick Mahomes. I remember
Patrick Mahomes, Alex Toussaint.
You had Holland. Did you have Holland?
Yeah, Erling Haaland. Yeah,
yeah.
He's massive.
When you had him, he was the #1 soccer player in the world.
Yeah, I believe he's still involved with HyperIce.
I wouldn't doubt it, but he's not like #1 anymore. But at the time, he was like irrefutable #1 player in the world.
Well, and that's the funny thing. It was interesting being at HyperIce, because initially HyperIce was going after athletes. Eventually, athletes started coming to HyperIce because they
saw the other ones,
everyone else doing it.
Yeah,
and so that made it really a lot of fun. And it became, it was weird because it became commonplace. Like at our dinner table, like I'd be like telling my wife about my day, and we'd be talking about like the CrossFitters that she watches on TV or follows on Instagram, or like she would do these Peloton rides, and we both like Alex Toussaint's classes, and I'd be like, oh,
he's my favorite one, honestly.
Same, honestly. Yeah. If he watches
he
this,
kicks my ass, man.
Yeah, amazing instructor. Yeah. I did 2 of his this week already, and so it was cool because at dinner it was like, hey, yeah, we're actually doing a video with him and all of these people that she follows, and it just became kind of surreal. And that's when I started to realize this macro environment of marketing is bigger than just ads. Because up until that time, I had a very narrow view of marketing. I was like, you use Facebook to generate top of funnel awareness. You use Amazon to convert the bottom of funnel. And that was just the play I had taken. I tried learning Google. I wasn't that good at Google, admittedly. I was a lot better at Amazon. And so I just thought, okay, let's drive as much with Facebook as possible, pick up all the branded search that followed with the Amazon or with Google. And so I thought that could work anywhere. And I was wrong. And then I go to HyperIce and I start learning, like, okay, there's more to growth marketing than just ads. And it's interesting to, I guess, sit back and analyze it now, because it's like the things you could tell yourself 5 years ago, if you could. And it's just, I needed to have a more open mind back then. I probably could have grown it even quicker.
How do they think about these, though? How do they think about these relationships? Because, like, for people that are listening in the ecom world, I always have these conversations on the side. What influencers should I work with? How should I pay them? Like,
yeah,
HyperIce obviously raised money, right? Like, they didn't bootstrap. Like, there's no way to sign these kind of people, right?
Yeah, HyperIce raised money. Most of the companies I've been at have raised money. And I think it's what you do with that money that matters. And the play that I usually see now not work out according to plan is the one where people just go after just general influencers. You have to be niche. So if for HyperIce, I was going to run ads to soccer fans, I would use assets with Erling Haaland in them. If I was going to run ads to a Peloton affinity, I would use ads with assets that have Alex Toussaint in them. And you can't just, when you're going after these niche groups, you can't just run all your assets to the same group. You have to be very, very targeted and almost kind of train the algorithm to go at X audience with X asset instead of going after everyone with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, hoping one of them hits. And that's kind of how we started to look at it, was how do we build these little cohorts within there. And I think playing around with messaging worked. We did a rebrand a while back, and I was part of the team during the rebrand. That was a lot of fun. So the rebrand, that was my first rebrand that I ever worked on. And it was interesting because it's the first time that I had to sit back and really evaluate messaging instead of just like writing 50 lines of copy and running them as ads to see what the winner was. It was really sitting back and thinking critically and understanding what consumers thought about the brand too. And that is where I think real brand building occurs. And I think growth marketing and brand marketing, I know oftentimes the teams can, butt heads or not work that closely together, or brand always wants this to look that way, growth wants this to look this way. But I think brand marketing and growth marketing go hand in hand in a lot of ways. And if you can align with your brand team on at least the audience side of it and who that niche is, and you can all agree who the consumer is, then your growth and brand teams have something in common. And then everything you're building is just a facet of that. And so that was, probably my biggest lesson from HyperIce is how to do brand marketing and how to do true growth marketing, not just be a media buyer, not just be a guy watching video after video on how to do these TikTok ads, or not TikTok ads at the time, Facebook ads at the time, but somebody who's thinking about, okay, I know that, we can't run the same exact messaging through Holland, through, any of the athletes. It has to be very targeted. You have to speak to their audience with your copy.
Yep.
And that's where I learned that did better than just getting 20 influencers and paying them to say the same thing. It was letting them be authentic and speak to their audiences.
And how do you guys measure this though? Like, I would imagine you're paying a pretty big chunk of money, not based on sales, to these athletes.
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to budget. It's
Are you viewing it as like MER of the company? Like, how much are we spending total and how much are we generating total? Because it's kind of hard to attribute like
you can't
these
do
sales
a ROAS,
came from
CAC model.
Yeah, you can't.
You have to do it as MER. And really, it's
and you can't even track, right? Like how much did Holland bring us versus Patrick Mahomes.
And there's ways to do that, right? Like you can use different claim codes and you can capture some of it and get an idea. But if you want to know like exactly how many customers come from each of your influencers, I think it's impossible for any business.
Yeah, and the real effect for those people is like the status that it creates, right? It's like
exactly
Mahomes uses this. Like I could never use a code, never click a link in his bio, nothing, and just know he uses it, and now I'm buying the product. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And I agree. I mean, it's attribution is interesting with growth marketing because I almost think sometimes an over focus on attribution kind of hurts the growth marketing mindset.
I agree completely.
Yeah, you find yourself worrying about like little things. Like is the way he's articulating this hurting my click-through by 1%, or is the video just good? Like just let it run at a 6% click-through rate. Just let it run.
Yeah.
And it's with that CAC model or with that ROAS model, you can't get a growth marketing mindset out of that anymore, in my opinion.
So it's one thing to own the athletes, not own them, but get them as people using the product.
Advocates.
It's another thing to get the leagues that actually own the athletes.
So that was a very fun part of HyperIce. We have a lot of league partnerships, and they were a lot of fun to activate with at the time.
You have the NFL, right? Who else did they have?
And I think most of these, if not all of them, are still active, but there was NFL, NBA, PGA, UFC.
That's
crazy.
Basically,
if there was a 3-letter acronym, we had it, right? And the leagues were an interesting one because some of them would let you do the fun things like whitelisting and that sort of thing. But a lot of them had different nuances, like you can do this, you can't do that. So you had to play within their guidelines. And that was a fun challenge because you not only have to play within your brand book, but you have to play within their brand book. So you have like a double trigger before you can even run an ad.
Yeah.
So your boss has to sign off on it, but then somebody, in a shirt and tie at a league has to sign off on it too. So it makes you really focus on your messaging, really focus on the niche, and you had to just be super dialed in with it. So we saw a lot of good success there. And then we saw a lot of good success with the teams too. There were times where we were whitelisting certain teams and we were running ads from certain teams, and those did pretty well. But here's the thing: if you run whitelisting from the Seattle Seahawks in Cleveland, Ohio, it's not going to do as well as if you run it in the state of Washington.
I imagine. Yeah.
So little nuances there that you learn along the way.
So how do these contracts work though? One, how do they get these agreements? Two, like how are they? You don't need to give me like numbers, but like
so there is some secret sauce there, right? There is a lot of relationship building, but you have to have credibility above all. So for the leagues to buy in, it doesn't hurt to already have athletes that are in those leagues using your product.
For sure.
It doesn't hurt to have, NCAA colleges using your product. It doesn't hurt that the big trainers for the NFL that hear from college coaching staff at Big Ten that they use it. that doesn't hurt. So having the street cred to back up your claims and back up how good your product is, and then having a roster already definitely helps. If I was to start a company today, I don't know how I would go at the NFL just with nothing. You have to get athlete investors, athlete partnerships, athlete advocates, and then you have to get their trainers. Or maybe you get their trainers first, but you have to get the people who carry weight with the key decision makers before the key decision makers are ever going to give you the time of day.
And I feel like that's just any business.
Yeah.
Like that's literally how any business works. I'll go, and even in the agency world, I'll go and get a really awesome client, and then I'll go and be like, hey, this guy uses us, you should too. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, I feel like the core principles of business as a whole. And I think sometimes a lot of people try to skip like 10 steps because they have money or funding or whatever the case is. But
I've seen brands get a big ego, because they get a big paycheck from these investment companies and they go try to break in, and then you don't hear about them the next year because they go blow all that money right away on big activations instead of building. And I think that's an important word to look at, is building, right? Because building an agency, it takes time. You didn't do all of this overnight. It came in steps. Like, you probably still remember the first person you hired, and you weren't in this office.
Still work with us.
Still work with it. Yeah. So there's continuity of your brand within those hires and within that growth. And you have to look at that for any brand that has a foothold has built. They have just not sprung onto the market and the next day been huge. I guess the only brand I can think of right now that does not apply to is like Ozempic. Just pops up out of the blue.
I mean, that's just like
blows up.
That's just crazy. Ozempic's just a whole nother scenario.
Wild story. Yeah.
So you were doing this at HyperIce while you were still building Clovo.
Yeah, so Clovo was my sandbox. Every wacky idea I wanted to test for HyperIce, I could run it on my own brand and then show like, hey, guys, I did this with my own money at my other company, and here were the results. And then some of them we ran and they worked, and some of them we were like, we could never do something like that.
Please don't tell this to anyone.
yeah, please don't ever show us that again.
That's funny. So how did you end up transitioning out of HyperIce and exiting Clovo? Was it at the same time?
It was almost around a similar time. So I got an offer from a tech startup company to come run their growth marketing at around the same time I started the process of exiting Clovo. And so for me, it was getting into another market. It was trying to prove like I wasn't just a one-trick pony. It wasn't just, I didn't just get lucky with these ads. Like, I wanted to be outside of sports, and I wanted to be outside of
Why is that?
Because I didn't want to be siloed. I wanted to know I could do.
It was like for your own self.
Yeah. I want to know I could sell different things. I could market different things. And the question I asked myself was I a good salesman or was I a good marketer? And I wanted to prove to myself I was a good marketer. And
it's the same reason I bought my restaurant franchise.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Which I want to eat that while I'm here.
Oh yeah.
I gotta stop in.
You bro.
I gotta go.
The problem is it's gonna be better than you think it is, and
yeah. Maybe I'll go Sunday. Oh wait, it's Easter.
Yeah. Still go though.
Open?
We'll coordinate.
Open Sunday?
Yeah,
okay.
Open, yeah.
Okay.
We'll coordinate.
So you wanted to
it was for my own self. I'm like, you know what? Let me, like, how sick would it be if I went to an industry that I've never been in, went and bought a business in it, and scaled it to a point that 99.99% of them never scale to, and did it as like a hobby on the side, just to prove like, how good am I at business? Can I do this on the side without making it my main thing?
Yeah.
And still get past where most people have never even gone.
And how's it going so far?
It's going great. Every store has broken their record month. They've been in business for 4 years.
Okay.
The last 2 months have both been record months.
It's insane.
The most business they've ever had.
I love that.
I cut down the menu by 80%. I even removed stores. I said, close these 2 stores down, because certain owners had 2 stores. They were just in bad locations. And so I was like, why are you focusing on this one? Cut it. I'll double your sales at the other one. It's a way easier situation for you. And then we'll go and build a different store in a better area.
Interesting.
And so I cut the stores down, cut the menu down.
So cutting the menu down, I'm pretty sure they did that in Founders too, when they were looking at like the diner model with like McDonald's or the hamburger stand model, because some of them used to serve like chili and
it's just
spaghetti
too much.
Pizza,
it's like, what are we doing?
They sold 80% hamburgers, so like why have everything else?
Exactly. We're on the same page. So I was like, dude, I bought this business to be super simple.
Yeah.
I didn't buy it to own a restaurant with wait staff and all this stuff, because then I would never have bought it. I bought it because it's fried chicken and fries.
Yeah.
And so like anyone should be able to run this. So
Yeah.
how much can I reduce on the option side so that we don't have to store these different kinds of foods or flavorings or whatever it is, and we just focus on what we're good at.
But it's also nostalgic too, right? Like, didn't you grow up eating there? And
It's not grow up because they didn't open until 2020.
okay.
But since 2020, yeah, it's been my spot. Like, even when friends come into town, I take them there, and they're
Yeah.
like, "Oh my gosh, this place is incredible."
Yeah.
So when I bought it, like, all my friends were like, "Holy fuck! Like, you bought like the spot."
Yeah.
Like,
Does anyone ever get like the imposter syndrome of like, okay, is this like Chick-fil-A or is this?
it's not even close. What would you guys say, honestly? Like, it's not even comparable to Chick-fil-A.
No.
You can't even. Chick-fil-A is like, if you eat Chick-fil-A and this sandwich side by side, Chick-fil-A will feel like I don't even know. It's not even chicken. It doesn't feel like chicken anymore because it's so thin.
Interesting.
Yeah, you eat this sandwich, you're like, holy fuck, this
So
is
these are
chicken.
like real chicken breasts, like thick.
7 ounces, dude.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Wait, per sandwich?
Yeah.
Like a half a pound chicken sandwich.
Yeah.
Jeez.
It's
Okay.
I'm telling you, it's you eat it and you're like, I don't think I'm gonna eat the fries.
I love that.
But it's like all like everything except the word organic,
Yeah.
like non-GMO. Like Chick-fil-A's chicken is way less healthy than ours, just for
Interesting.
context.
Yeah.
So
Well, I saw they're doing away with their antibiotic-free thing too. Like starting
exactly,
this month.
ours are
Yeah.
antibiotic free, plus like 10 other things that Chick-fil-A isn't.
Yeah.
And we don't even have MSGs, which like pretty much every chicken company does, because it's really just salt flavoring is what MSGs
Yeah.
are. But anyways, long story short, it was because I was like, you know what, like, let me prove that I could do this.
Yeah.
Like, just for like myself, like,
Interesting.
could I do this as like an own personal accolade? So I feel like that's kind of the same situation for you.
It was. And I mean, you could, if you asked my wife what my dream is when I retire, it's literally just to own the best diner in town. We love diner food. Like Saturday, Sunday mornings, we have like 3 different diners in our area and we go to one of them. When we travel around to different places, we just look up who has the best diner food and we go there.
That's cool.
When I travel for work, I'll text her. I was just in New York for work a couple of weeks ago, and I text her like, I'm at this diner on the corner and I'm having the best orange juice I've ever had in my life. And so like for some reason, diner culture has just become our thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, I just want a good diner. And for me, do you know the franchise First Watch?
Yeah.
So they're right next to my gym. I'm usually in the gym at like 6 in the morning, and then First Watch opens at 7. And I walk next door and I get a coffee at First Watch. And it's not like a neighborhood diner, but it's still diner-esque. And diner coffee to me, they're in the same plaza. They're right next to a Starbucks. I will take that First Watch diner coffee breakfast blend over Starbucks any day. And it's just something about it. So for me, it's the same thing. Nostalgia-wise, I guess I never want to truly retire, but I just want to do something to see if I can be good at it, and I want to run a diner when I retire.
That's funny. I can't wait to see you run a diner, bro.
Dude, come have some eggs.
From HyperIce to diners.
Yes, from 9-figure brands to 9-egg omelets.
That's
or
too
whatever
funny,
it is.
dude.
Yeah.
What a book.
What a book.
So did you leave HyperIce and you went to that tech company?
Yeah, so I took the offer and went to that company, and they were in the smart lock space. And I worked there for about a year. And that is, I was out on paternity leave when this offer, or when the Timeline opportunity presented itself. And Timeline is super interesting. So Timeline Nutrition is backed by 15 years of research. And I've been in this game long enough to have seen every supplement come on the market. And the one thing they all lack is science. So a mutual friend of the CEO of Timeline introduced me to him, and we started chatting. And I dug into the brand and I started falling in love with it, because I'm like, you have the opposite problem of every other supplement brand out there. Every supplement brand on the market today, every single one, has to take bro science and make it sound professional. They have to make it sound like true science. We have so much true science and can speak at such a high level about that science at Timeline that we almost have to turn it down. We almost have to turn it down to a bro science level.
Not almost, you do.
To get people to understand.
When we got in, I was looking at the ads. I was
Yeah,
like, dude, this is a physics professor in a PhD program talking right here.
What is mitochondrial health? And if you ask any listener out there right now, what is mitochondria, they would say, what would you say, mitochondria? Do you remember from high school? Powerhouse of the cell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like it's like a staple.
Yeah,
Like, you
that's
gotta know.
every chemistry teacher, biology teacher tells you mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. But you don't know much beyond that. So I got a crash course on science with this product, and I started looking at the data, and I'm like, wow, this is real. This is a supplement that could really change the game. And I was finishing up the sale of Clovo at the time, and I had a checklist. So we had started another brand at the same time. Good Boy Gravy is my pet brand, and I wanted to get involved with another big company, and I had a checklist, and one of them was I wanted to get the same kind of messages. I wanted to make a difference in people's lives like we did at Clovo. So Clovo, there was a real sense of like doing good in the world when we'd wake up in the morning, and my wife was running customer service. She would send us messages from people where they say, hey, I've been on chemo. This is the first time I've slept in 6 months. I've been on Ambien for a decade. This helped me get off of Ambien. And we started getting a lot of these messages during COVID. People would call and leave messages crying on the machine. And that was interesting, like just hearing people so grateful. Like, I don't know what you're doing with this product, but it's helping me sleep for the first time in my life. So that was at the very top of my boxes. I said, I wanted to work at a company that made a difference. Timeline was the first one that came across my desk where I was like, this company can make a big difference, and it already is. And there's Amazon reviews, and I know how to spot fake ones from real ones. There weren't any fake ones with Timeline. I'm sure you can do the same at this point.
Yeah,
you can look and tell. And I would read these, and I'm like, okay, this is a real review, and this guy is saying I used to have to take a lift up my stairs to go to my bedroom, and now I can walk up the stairs without even holding the railing. And that's when I realized like this product actually is helping people get strength and energy back. And it's not just bro science. It's not just a hyped up creatine or arginine or L-citrulline or anything else that's been in pre-workout for 20 years. This is a novel ingredient, urolithin A, that their team stumbled upon by accident while they were looking at pomegranates, and then turned into 15 years of science that eventually culminated in a supplement that you can take every day. And the results are real.
And they did a test on it, right?
Yeah, they did lots of tests. Yeah.
Tell me about those.
So urolithin A is the main ingredient in the product, and it's backed by over 300 clinical studies, clinical and preclinical. So back to, a lot of people know clinical studies. There's also preclinical studies. So if you go all the way back, this product is so well researched that we actually got an FDA GRAS letter, which is essentially, the FDA saying they have no issues with what you're saying about the product's safety. And no other new products have that. You see all these things about NAD precursors, CBD, anything you take like that, they don't have an FDA GRAS letter. And if you ask any company out there, are you approved by the FDA? They give you the boilerplate answer, which is the FDA does not approve supplements, which is true. There's nothing untrue about that statement. However, when someone asks us that question, we say we actually have an FDA GRAS letter. And you can't ask any of the NAD companies out there for an FDA GRAS letter. They don't have it, and Timeline does. So this is a real company. It's also a real product and a real company that is also NSF certified safe for sport. So now you have anyone can take it and trust it and trust the benefits and trust the science behind it. And that's what makes it really special.
And what is the science in a few sentences?
So I guess the best way, if I had to describe it, I came up with this one on New Year's Eve. It's like 1-800-JUNK for your cells. So a lot of people don't know this, but your cells, if you look at your cell, imagine it like a cup of water. And you have trillions of cells in your body, right? You can only fill a cup so much before it starts to overflow. Or if there's a lid on it, maybe it bursts, right? Your cells can only fit so much. So you need new mitochondria, you need healthy mitochondria, but the process of your body breaking down mitochondria, the decaying mitochondria is very, very slow. It's not something that can just happen in a second. You can't just take a shot of something and it reduces all the bad mitochondria. So that process is called mitophagy, of breaking down mitochondria. It's mitophagy. And so what urolithin A does is it actually speeds up that process. So now your cells are recycling quicker, and all the junk that's filled up your cells for so long goes away, which then produces new healthy mitochondria. That's where the energy boost comes from. So you're getting rid of the dead weight and bringing in new healthy mitochondria. And that's what's proven in the science. That's what's proven in the reviews, everything across the board. And that's how I would sum it up. 1-800-JUNK for your cells.
And so that's the conviction that you got in order to join the company, and you felt like it was kind of checking off all the boxes of like marketing opportunity, but also fulfillment of like we're doing something, we're actually changing the world here.
Changing the world and changing the way that people age. I mean, that's a big thing. Like I'm 34, and I mean, I started getting gray hairs in my beard, and it's like, okay, I'm starting to age, right? Like what do I want healthy aging to look like for me? What does that mean? You know, do I want to, it's a weird thing when you're our age to be thinking about like playing, you know, pickleball with your grandkids. Like, you know,
It's true though.
But yeah, like we have young kids, and it's like one day they're going to have kids, and I want to be healthy enough to play basketball with my daughter's son, you know, down the road. And so at some point in time, everyone starts to take their longevity seriously and their lifespan seriously, and even their health span. I mean, health span and lifespan are different. Lifespan is like, you're going to live to be 83 years old in one day. Health span is how long do you want to run marathons for? You got people who are 85 still running marathons. You know, how long are you going to be healthy for? And there's a lot of data out there that show that, I don't want to butcher this data, but I believe it's over 50% of people over 75 years old get zero exercise. And
I'm surprised it's not more.
It could be more. I went conservative just
but over
50
is still, it could be anything.
It's a large cohort of 75 plus. And then, I'd listen to things like Tony Robbins. I think he said I can't remember if this was him or on Joe Rogan, or he said it on Joe Rogan, but he said something like, at some point you jump for the last time. And that's like why he has the trampoline that he jumps on every morning. And that's kind of stuck with me for years. Like, man, you got to take care of yourself, because at some point you're not going to jump off the ground ever again. You're not going to go for a layup. You're not going to be on the trampoline with your daughter. You're just not going to have a reason to jump anymore, which is kind of sad. Like,
it's crazy to think about.
It's depressing.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to, like, you play a lot of basketball.
Yeah.
Imagine you're going to take your last layup one day, you know?
That's crazy.
And then you're just going to be like, nah, not today. And from that day on, you'll never do it again. So for me, this space of longevity is super interesting, and healthy aging is super interesting. I don't think there's enough science for people to say I can live to be 300 years old, because no one's done it on paper that I know of that's verified. But I think there are things everyone can do to be a little bit healthier, and I think supplements like MitoPure from Timeline Nutrition can help you do that. They can help you age a little bit better. And if anything, they're going to make you more cognizant of what you're doing with your health span. Because if you for the sake of argument, are eating very unhealthy and you're just at work all the time, well, now you got a ton of foreign substances coming into your body. You're in a high stress environment. And if you're not doing what you love outside of that, you're not in a very conducive state to aging healthy. You're in a state where your body's probably going to break down quicker. And so I think and all of that contributes to inflammation. And inflammation's a big buzzword right now. So for me, it all kind of bundles up into this package of longevity and healthy aging. And I fell in love with Timeline because of the benefits I saw it bringing to people in the healthy aging space, in the longevity space, and all the doctors that they have on the roster reviewing the science and being like, yeah, guys, this is legit. And they all take it. So that's been a lot of fun. Just that clinical validation, that doctor validation, and then the reviews from real users.
I love that. So we obviously work together on this project.
Yeah.
I appreciate you bringing this on. So there's some things we can't talk about, but there are some things that we can talk about that are public. So one of them is the fact that you guys just raised a ton of money. How much money was it again?
I believe it was $66 million, and it was an investment round led by Nestle and L'Oreal. So
crazy.
You have two CPG titans. Right, coming in, dropping $66 million in a...
How does that happen? Like, well, give me some insights on that process. Like, that's fucking crazy.
Yeah.
$66 million.
It's a lot of money. And it's an interesting time to do it, right? Like, you're not at a
no one's
stage.
raising money. Everyone's scared to invest in CPG brands right now.
Exactly. And so that is validation enough for me that the science is real, because you're not going to get that kind of money from Nestle and L'Oreal without their science teams looking at it and saying, yeah, this is legit. So, I can't go into too much detail other than that about it, but what I will say is that it took a little bit of time, but everyone that was involved sees it for what it is and sees where it's going and knows that this is the longevity.
But how does that happen though? That money raise, like, do you go to them? Do they come to you? How do you go to them? Do you have like? Is there anything?
It varies company to company. I was not directly involved in any of the approach, so I don't know if that was somebody knew somebody. I don't know how the conversation there started.
Yeah,
but I know in other scenarios that I've been in with other companies, you're basically putting together a deck for your Series A, B, C, D, whatever it is, and you're either going to the big investment companies that are out there, the
like
banks,
private equity firms,
private equity, or you're going to now these athletes all have their own little private equity companies, and it's usually run by a couple family members. And
Makes sense.
2 or 3 analysts, and just deciding.
Steph Curry and his friends have like a little thing going on.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm sure you got plenty of that, and you pitch them. They want to be involved with things that are going to help increase their name, image, and likeness as well. But for something like the Nestle and L'Oreal deal, put yourself in their shoes, right? You're only going to invest in things that are going to further your brand outside of that. So if you had to make an assumption from that, just purely looking at the data of it, it's that they're interested in the science and they see it as real science.
And where does that money go? Obviously, we're on the marketing side, right? So you guys are like, hey, if we do this, blank check. Run it. You know what I mean?
In a perfect world, right?
Yeah. But you're also like, but we also don't want to like exceed projections too much because these are projections for a reason, right? Yeah. And so it's an interesting world we're playing in.
And here's the thing. If I wrote you a blank check for marketing, it could hurt the business because supply may not be able to keep up.
Exactly.
And I think if we just talked about Chick-fil-A, why are they eliminating antibiotic-free? Because they're selling too much chicken. There is not enough. They cannot buy more antibiotic-free chicken. So now they got to broaden the range, right? So their quality is now suffering as a result of their growth. I don't want to be in that same position. So I can't just say, Eddie, go run 66 million in Facebook ads tomorrow.
Damn it.
Maybe in a couple of days I'll check. Let me check with the board and get back to you. But, supply could not keep up. We probably could not guarantee the same quality across the board. We'd have to rush everything. I don't even know how long it would take to make that much of the product to sell.
Yeah.
So it all gets, I guess for lack of a better word, rationed out and budgeted. And you take that 66 mil and you decide how long you want that to sustain XYZ for and where you want it to go. If I was to, I can't speculate fully on that raise, but I mean, if I raised, for the sake of a round number for, say my pet brand, say I raised 100 million tomorrow, I would probably put a portion of that into R&D and IP. So really developing your IP portfolio and protecting it, because that is what's going to matter when you go to sell a company, right? That helps your multiple right there, is having that very solid IP book. Another lesson I learned from Clovo. We didn't have solid IP, so we didn't get anywhere near some of these valuations you read about where someone got 13x, for whatever the reason was. So I would take a very significant portion and I would put it into R&D and protecting your IP. But also build out the team. I mean, from having bad marketing and for media before that, like building out your team is everything. And this is a Swiss company that's starting to make waves in the US. And so you have to come in and hire people who've done it. You have to bring in people from other DTC big brands, other DTC giants, and bring them in to run the funnel and build the company. And it's not all about the marketing. You have to have the logistics, you have to have the customer experience, you have to have the finance, you have to have everything in place so that marketing and sales can do its job. But you can't do one without the other. I mean, I'm in that position right now with Good Boy Gravies. We outsold because of our current forecast. So because I oversold and I went and I had a 200K month in February, I had almost no sales in March because we overshot the projection. So that's why that's very important in my mind. But I think for a company,
it's an important period, not in your mind. It's like a very big problem in the e-commerce space.
Yeah.
And what happens with a lot of these people too is, I talk about this all the time. They overdo it. They sell too much. They think they're pacing that.
Yeah.
They buy ahead, expecting that they're pacing that. They're not funded. They just take their cash. They put in a purchase order for $400K, whatever it is. They go buy that. By the time that purchase order gets done, sent to them 45 days, their marketing has died off compared to where it was. Yep. It's not moving at the same pace. They have too much inventory. They have too little cash.
Yep.
And in order to close a customer, they have to lose money compared to where they were. And
that's
the
not
business
a good position to be in.
Flips over.
Exactly. And I think that's very important, especially for a up and coming DTC brand. You want to keep a negative cash conversion cycle, especially if you're someone who just started, right? It's very important that you try to get on terms, very important that you try to get, even the manufacturer to do your end-to-end fulfillment if possible. Do all those things you can to shorten your supply chain, shorten your lead time, and then elongate your payment terms so that you can actually get paid by the customer before you pay your supplier. And that was the magic with Clovo. When we put it out for sale, we had a very good negative cash conversion cycle where we had one of the best contracts. Society Brands, actually, one of their analysts told me it was the best contract or the best agreement he'd ever seen. He said, never before have I seen a company who makes the product and they'll make, say they made 10,000 units at a time. Mm-hmm. They would make, the manufacturer of Clovo would make those patches. They'd hold them. They'd ship them every day as my Shopify orders came in. So they'd ship it to you, to him, to him. They'd ship it to the end users. They'd ship the cases to Amazon. And then at the end of the month, we'd get a bill, the first of the next month for everything that they shipped out. And it was the units plus the fulfillment and the shipping. And we had net 30 on that. So we had a great net 30 negative cash conversion cycle where we got paid before we ever paid for the product.
That's
which
crazy.
Allowed us to front load marketing. It allowed us to build. And that is what gave us the runway to go build Good Boy Gravies outside of that. And so now we're doing the same thing there, and we're building out this supply chain with Good Boy where, we're not going to have that same issue that a lot of companies run into where they don't have cash and they don't have runway. We want all of it. We want cash. We want runway.
Yeah, of course.
So that's how it goes. But every company is different, right? You're going to work with, I'm sure you've sold to, companies like if you sell to a vitamin shop or you sell to a Dick's Sporting Goods or any other retailer, they're going to be like, we'll only work with you if you give us net 90. And I don't have the cash to fund net 90 at the startup stage. So you ask, what do you do with 66 million? You got to keep some reserved if you want to do things like that, right? You have to have cash. Cash is king. And there may be a time where a play like that were to happen and you need cash to front load that. So that's probably the extent I could say on that one.
I love it. Well, so you have all this money, you have all this team, you have all this incredible product.
Team's my favorite one, by the way.
Yeah.
Building out, that's
it's also the hardest one for sure.
It is. I bet we could talk for hours on team building and just I hire mindsets. I want people that are hungry, people that are sharks. I want people that can think 3 moves ahead and they're not just looking at a to-do list. And that's how I try to hire. I look at it as who is like who's a young, smart version of me. They don't even have to be young, just who's a smarter version of me when I was at my hungriest.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Who sees the game for what it is and knows how to go out and execute and is actually smart enough and resilient enough to go out, and sometimes you got to take a beating along the way, right? You have to get told no. You have to say you can't do these. You got to come up with this great creative, this great ad, and then it just tanks, and you have to take those lessons and keep going, right? So who has that resilience to keep going? And I want to hear more in interviews with people about their failures. I want to know what didn't work and then how you bounce back. Because that says more to me than, I was at this company and I grew at 100 million, and I was at this company and I grew at 50 million. I want to hear about the times you lost money and then what you did and how did you still hit your numbers that quarter. Like that's what means more to me in my mind.
Love it. So you have all this money, team, product, everything. 2024. What are like the top 3 things that Timeline, a 9-figure company, is going to do to grow their brand?
That's a good question. It's going to be a mix of things. So number 1, it goes back to team. You have to build out the right team to carry whatever our growth plan is to execute on it. So building out the team is 1. As far as executing on that, it's going to be a mix of aligning the right partnerships in place, because like we talked about, for a lot of these brands, I don't see many brands growing past the 8-figure realm into the 9-figure realm without some type of partnerships. So it's really defining who is going to be a good partner for a brand like Timeline. And you'll see in the coming months, different press releases and things like that. There's a lot of fun stuff in the tank there. But the logical next step for a company of our size is to align the right way. Mm-hmm. And then also, how do you carry that message out to different cohorts? Because you've seen the ads, and if you look at a lot of the ads, a lot of them are geared towards biohackers. So how do you expand beyond that, And it's like if you were to look at at a Nutrafol, they go after, I think they started with just like a men's line, and then they have the women's line, and now their messaging shifts. And so you have to find, okay, who else cares about longevity and health span other than biohackers? Is it the people that run marathons in their 70s and 80s? How do you speak to them? How do you get in front of them? Do you have to go to the marathons, talk to them in person? A lot of these people that are, big advocates of a longer health span, they're not always on social media. A lot of these people have, boycotted it, or some of them are 50, 60, 70, never had social media. So you have to look at partnerships as a way to get new eyes on your product, because you have cohorts of people who don't see your product elsewhere. And so I think that's something that often gets overlooked, is you assume that these digital channels encompass everyone, when in actuality, there's big cohorts of people living very healthy lives, very, functional medicine minded lives, longevity minded lives, health span minded lives, who just don't do social, don't go on their phones. They're not really on the internet, and you have to find a way to engage with them. So I would say engaging, being more omni-channel, that's probably a big one for us. Being in the right places, right place, right time. And now's the right time. So now we just have to find the right place. Partnerships, right place, right time, team, and then your content strategy. I think your content strategy in this climate is everything, because like you said in the beginning of this, you have a lot of people scared to spend money right now. As, I would say up until like 21, 22, everyone was kind of looking at a ROAS model. That was like the thing back then in like the COVID days. It was like ROAS, and everyone was investing where the ROAS was. But now it's more of an MER and LTV model. So how do you keep that customer for a longer period of time? And then how do you, help their life to the point where they want to keep reordering? I'm reading this really interesting book called The Culting of Brands. Have you ever read this book?
No.
Really good. I'm going to send you this book. It's really good. But I mean, they make a lot of really interesting points about how some brands almost have a religious like following behind them, because if you can help someone's life enough, then they'll never want to leave you. Like, one thing I always see you post, no matter what car you drive, you always post pictures of your BMW, and you say, I've driven every supercar out there, this is still my favorite.
Yeah.
Like you have a cult-like following to that car. You love that car.
It deserves it.
It deserves it. See?
Look
at the way you talk about it. But look at the Hells Angels. You can't be in the Hells Angels unless you drive a Harley.
Yeah.
And then it's like, look at, you ever been in a group chat and someone in there is causing it to be green, and there's a green bubble? Remember when you were the green bubble?
Stop.
Before you got your iPhone?
Hey, now all the green bubbles are blue bubbles.
Yeah. Oh,
did you know that?
No.
Yeah. They're now using the same system, so you can't even tell the difference.
So you can't even put your friends on blast?
No.
Oh, man. That was like the favorite part of my day.
But you still can't FaceTime, so that's the downside.
That's true. Yeah, I remember I used to get on you about that too. Like, you gotta get the.
Everyone did. I just literally posted a video about it like yesterday.
Well, I think that's probably why it was on my mind. But like the point with that is that, you have to find a way to create that synergy within someone's life where you're needed, and you're not just like a random thing. What we have to consider as marketers too, I don't think this gets talked about enough, and I just brought this up to my team in the past week. When you look at health and wellness, most people have a set budget for how much they're going to spend in a month on supplements. So like, if my budget is $100 and I see an ad for MitoPure, which is $100, how do I make the decision not to buy my Athletic Greens and my Alpha Brain, and this month instead spend my $100 on MitoPure? How do you make that decision? How do you convince somebody that the things that they are tried and true in their lives that they need to try this product? And I think that's something that doesn't get enough love. A lot of people just assume, well, they have money for these, they'll have money for this too. But that's not always the case. You got a lot of people, especially as you start marketing towards older people, who are on fixed incomes, who are on set budgets. And I think that's something that people need to really consider. How are you differentiating yourself from everyone else out there? Because so many brands look alike, and there's not enough, there's not enough difference between them. All the sleep gummies, right? What is the difference between them? They're all 5 milligram melatonin. They're all made at one of 3 places here in the US or in China. So what is the difference? There is none other than the branding. So that is another thing I like about Timeline and MitoPure is we have a very protected ingredient, and there are knockoffs that are on Amazon, and we'll buy them and we'll test them. And there's actually products up there on Amazon that say they contain urolithin A that we test them and they have none. And so then we have to go and try to resolve that on the back end. So you really have to watch what you're buying out there. And that is why I think that distrust that people have with products like that and experiences like that often leads them to that very question of, why should I spend my $100 with you instead of these products that I already take? And that's an interesting conversation to have. That's bigger than a TikTok hook to me. That's bigger than the most viral hook of the week or whatever it may be, or stitch of the week. It's, how am I going to show you enough value that you're trusting me for X amount of time? So I think that's nailing down that growth mindset is going to be detrimental to our success in 2024. I know that's 4 things, not 3 things.
Hey, it's all good, man. The value's there at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So look here. First of all, thanks for coming on, dude. This is super valuable. Like, I feel like there's a lot of takeaways from here. Each phase of your career in the e-commerce world kind of brings different problems and solutions that you have to solve in different ways that you think. I'm sure if you went back now to like your first gig with the information that you have, you would be in an insanely different spot, right?
Very.
And just thinking bigger. You probably even will go straight to big brands as an agency and start working with like massive companies.
I mean, imagine becoming the agency of record for like a Onnit Nutrition
before
they became as big as Onnit is.
Exactly.
The things and I said in the beginning of this, right? The things you wish you knew 10 years ago.
Yeah, it makes a difference. But I mean, dude, incredible success. And I'll tell you something I admire a lot about you is your family side. You're an incredible father, right?
Nice.
And I see that side of you a lot, and that's something we jam on a lot.
Yeah.
Is being like a really good father, being able to spend that time with your family.
That's what success looks like to me.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people have different definitions of it, especially in this social media landscape, where you see some of these guys with the private planes, this and that. Like, success to me is eating dinner at the table with my family at night. That's all it is. And it used to be different. I used to have those dreams of being the guy that was, speaking at all these crazy events with the private jets and coaching people on Bitcoin, this, that, and the other. And but then when you actually, I think, start to get real success in life and you sit back and you look at what matters, for me, at some point the switch flipped and it was like dinner with my family. That's how I measure success.
Yeah, and I love that about you.
It's
and
fun.
So we get along really well about that.
I love that about you too. I think when you and I first started talking is close to when you found out you were expecting your first daughter. And so it's been kind of fun to watch you grow into that and watch the stuff that you'd say and are learning. And the best part will be when 3 or 4 years when you go to your first daddy-daughter dance. And then you're going to start having the real fun. You're going to start,
that's crazy.
You're going to be yelling at people at volleyball games or whatever she does, basketball games. That's the fun part of being a dad. It's just like I said it the other day. I was like, 90% of being a dad is just showing up. That's all it is. Like, be the dad that you wanted as a kid. Just show up. Show an interest in your kids' lives. Show an interest in their sports. Learn a new sport. I didn't know shit about volleyball until my daughter started playing it. And I think I get more fired up at my kids' volleyball games than I do for a Browns game or I do for a Cavs game or any other Cleveland sports.
Yeah.
So
which is crazy.
It is.
Because Brown fans are crazy.
Browns fans are crazy. But we're crazy because we haven't had a win.
That's fair. It's like bottled up.
It's funny because if you look at that, I bet Browns, their fandom almost takes a hit if we get that Super Bowl. Because now we finally got it. All right, we're good.
We're like, finally, we've done what we waited so long.
It's like when the hot girl finally lets you go on a date with her. Finally, she said this. So
that's funny.
That's where we're at.
So here's how I want to end this. We always end this with like a fortune cookie quote, let's call it. So if it doesn't have to fit on a fortune cookie or anything, but it's more the concept of if you had to tell your younger self some sort of life advice that you think that they could take away and just add it to their notebook of these are really awesome pieces of life advice that I need to follow. Yeah. What would you let the people who are listening walk away with?
That's a great question.
You can take your time, bro.
No, there'd be a list. And if I had to go back and give myself advice, it would be, don't have an ego. When I killed my ego and I just stopped trying to think I was going to be the best in the world at marketing, or in anything in life, that's when I grew. I think that's when I became a good dad. That's when I became, a better marketer. That's when I think I got better at everything I did. And I think ego oftentimes kills a lot of progress or potential progress because you get siloed in these thoughts of like look at brands that have egos. Like how many times have you worked with a brand that has said, we can't run this because it's not on brand, even though it's not really that far off brand, it's just not in their messaging guidelines. They're letting an ego about themselves hold them back from getting access to a new customer demographic. So in my mind, it's something along the lines of kill the ego early, and that way you don't get siloed into this narrow mindset of I know what I'm doing. And saying those words, I know what I'm doing, held me back more than saying I don't know what I'm doing. Because now when I say I don't know what I'm doing, I can either look it up online, I can text you, and hopefully you have a good answer, or I can ask other people in the industry or in the space or whatever it may be. Like if I don't know how to do something now, I go learn. And I'm learning more today, whether it's, doing boxing, whether it's learning, we do like Muay Thai kickboxing, whether it's Muay Thai and I'm learning and it's like, I don't know how to do this. And, I have great people showing me, whether it's volleyball. I'll talk to my kids. I'll tell my kids, I don't know what I'm doing serving a volleyball. And my daughter will show me things to do when serving, and it's like, you're helping them get better by learning something yourself. So if I had to tell myself one thing, it would be kill the ego early so that you don't get siloed, so that you have a broader mindset, so that you can go out and actually accomplish what you want to accomplish.
I love that. That's so much. That was golden. I want you guys to clip that because the part about unapproving things because they're off brand, just so I can use that against him if he ever declined something super major.
Do not call Andy and ask if I declined anything this week.
I'm like, Andy, here, store this in your phone.
He's gonna put that in our Slack channel. But you know what I'm saying.
No, I know what you're saying. Ego, a hard time.
Ego is it's easy when you get on winning streaks, I think, especially when you're younger.
Yeah.
To be like, I'm the shit. When in reality, you're just a kid who got lucky with an ad.
Yeah.
And I had that moment multiple times. And so for me, I had to fall flat a number of times before I realized, I don't know what I'm doing. And being okay with saying that was a big shift for me. And I hope when I open that diner that I can hire the best fry cook possible and be like, I don't know what I'm doing. Show me how to make an omelet the way that you've been making it for 20 years. Because it's probably better than the one I make. And that's just the way I want to look at things.
No, you're damn right. I think the world the same way. So we're very aligned in that. And so someone's listening to this, they want to get in touch with you. Your brain is just so much more value than what's on this podcast. What's the best way for someone to get in touch with you, find you, connect with you?
Yeah, LinkedIn or Instagram. I think my Instagram. I made my Instagram handle back in 2016 or maybe it was 2018. I was playing chess at a bar in Columbus called Kingmakers. It was a chess bar. I don't know if it's still there. And so I made it Ecom Kingmaker. And I said, this is a great name because if I ever did something, if I ever started coaching, that'd be a great name to have. And it's been the same ever since. So it's Ecom Kingmaker.
Priming us to sell a course right there, ladies and gentlemen. Look at that.
What course should I sell?
Hey,
what does the industry need? Everyone's got a course. Everyone's got
industry needs people who actually know how to build a brand to teach them how to build a brand.
Growth marketing. You need growth
outside
marketing.
of just here's how to run an ad.
But just if you look at all these colostrum brands popping up, there's no discernible differences between a lot of them. They just say colostrum. What about courses? They're all Facebook ads. What does the industry need? Where do you go from there?
Yeah, I think it's just a more holistic approach to marketing as opposed to a uniform approach, which I think a lot of people are very unilateral in their approach of how they teach marketing versus I think a more universal approach. So
interesting. Do you think that I had this thought a couple of days ago? I was wondering, maybe you would know this. So it's more of a topic for discussion, and maybe even it's longer form, and maybe we'll do it the next time. But I have this thought that you have a growing number of people doing marketing at companies, which a lot of marketing now has just become media buying, who've never worked at an agency, who've never worked at another brand. They just have bought ads bought courses on Facebook ads and that kind of thing. Do you think having a generation of people that never went to got a marketing degree, never, worked an internship at a marketing company. Do you think that will hurt or help marketing down the road?
I think it will help marketing because our access to the internet is much more than it was when you and I were getting into marketing. And you have to understand, like, people, even having never worked at a company, by the age of 18 are so immersed in the world of social media and online that they have a different pulse of like what works and what doesn't work. I look at my little brother who's never worked at a company in his life, and he can do something that gets 10 million views tomorrow. And that's a skill that you and I don't have.
Yeah.
And we've worked in a lot of companies.
I actually just bought a course to learn that. I never learned the organic side. I never learned how to make it hit. And other guys, like you're saying, just know how to do that, know how to get the views. I've never been able to crack it.
Yeah.
I'd love to.
Yeah, same, right?
Who wouldn't? Like, how do you, and that's, I think, the beauty of it. Like, it's an art form, right? Like, there's no winning. You can't just paint a picture and it's instantly Mona Lisa. It instantly has $100 million valuation behind it. It's the same with these TikToks or Instagram reels or whatever it is. Like, there's like people who say they have a formula for it, but then there's people who just do it and they can't really describe it. They just say, I go out and do it.
Yeah. But I do think it'll create better understanding of consumer psychology digitally for this next generation, even without that experience, because when we grew up, like, we had like the people in our phone, and then we had the people like in our classes and the people in our community and the people in our workspace, but like that was our judgment in the media. Whereas now, like, I can get on any social platform and see what people in Haiti are doing, people in America are doing, people in Europe are doing, like, and understand how those consumer markets operate, what goes viral, what do they like. Like, we were just sitting in the conference room the other day talking about, like, what makes this video pop? Is it the negativity at the beginning? Is it how this is approached? And so there's just so much more data to dissect, and these guys are immersing themselves 6 hours a day on social media every day. So, I mean, I would rather, if I had to like really be like, okay, I need to hire one person right now to like help us get more attention, I wouldn't go hire the 45-year-old who has been, head of performance at 5 different companies. I would go hire the 24-year-old who blew up a big YouTube channel.
So you know what I mean? You'd hire the people that get the organic views over the people who've run the performance budgets.
Yeah, because what are performance budgets? They're paying other people to get the organic views for you. Like, that's really what you're doing, right? Yeah. Like, you're paying Patrick Mahomes for his organic views.
Sure. Yeah, that's an interesting way to look at it. So you currently see more value, right? Do you see more value right now in influencers or in creators? So influencers being people that shoot the content, post it, or creators being the people that you pay to make your content and then you whitelist it and post it.
Fuck that. I mean, that's it's not an apples to apples question, right? Because like, there could be an influencer that has a massive following. True. I'm going to value them more than a creator.
True.
But like, let's just talk like an average influencer. I would rather, I mean, here's the thing. Influencers are usually good creators. So it's kind of like, it's a contradictory question in a way, because like, they are influencers because they're good creators.
Yeah.
And that's how they become good influencers.
Got
so, it. but the real thing is like, I've always come from an ads background, right? And how I view ads is like, I can take something that's organically doing well. That's a pretty key indicator that it will do well on ads, and I can run it on ads and still get dramatically cheaper cost per results than I would if I just ran it as an ad with no actual test or hypothesis of like, is this going to work organically? If everything on average on my page does 10,000 views and one video does 400,000 views, I guarantee if I run that video as an ad, if it's like could be running as an ad, then that video will outperform every other ad I have, probably by 10x, just based on those numbers, right?
So you think it's more important to invest organic side and then take the winners from the organic side and run them as paid?
Yes, and in doing so, you create so much more content, not only for your organic, but for your paid, that ends up being the result of one ad that could make you tens of millions of dollars.
Love that. I agree. I think that's a smart strategy. But yeah, those are just questions that I've had floating around in my head. Like, what is this generation? What is the next generation of marketing going to look like? Because, like you said, we kind of like pioneered the space. Like, getting started in Facebook, and between 2014 and 2018, like, you were there from you came from the trenches of Facebook when you could just put up a picture of smart water and say, this will make you smart. And you got a 6X ROAS all the way through the first
way more
iOS.
than a 6X ROAS.
Yeah, all the way through the first iOS change, you know? And having seen it all, it just makes me wonder, what is the next generation of growth marketing going to look like?
I wish I could go back.
What would you say? What would you tell you?
What?
The same question you asked me. What would you tell yourself back in the day? What piece of advice? What's your fortune cookie?
Oh, I mean, mine's always the same, which is like value knowledge and experience over money. And I've built my whole life around that. So I've always invested my money into meeting more people, into building better relationships, into access to more courses, access to more masterminds.
And now chicken sandwiches.
And now chicken sandwiches, right? But it's cool because I get into the chicken sandwich business. I was talking about with Club Early Bird Chucky the other day, right? And I was like, this is the easiest business I've ever been into because like,
really?
Yeah, it's so easy, dude. Because like I'm in the agency world. Like, you know how hard this shit is? We have like hundreds of clients. Like everyone has a different brand. Everyone has different people working for their brand. Everyone has different KPIs. We're attacking different markets. We have to check data like multiple times a day. Yeah. And like the restaurant business is not, it doesn't move that quick. It's not like a stock market. It's not like a Forex market. It's like
your goal is to do exactly the same for every customer, not something different for every customer.
Exactly.
You have to make that same sandwich for me, for you, for him.
And if I have 100,000 customers that day, they all get the same experience.
They have to have a flawless, seamless experience where your sandwich tastes the same as the next one. And then every visit, it has to taste the same.
Exactly. So and then the marketing is like so much easier because the LTV is so high if the product is good. And two, I'm also competing against like respectfully like dumbasses. Like who owns restaurants are usually people who are like older, who like have been in, they're like a chef or cooking background. They have no business background, no marketing background. Whereas in the ecom world, I'm competing against the dogs of dogs. Like these are the most savage motherfuckers in the world. They fucking check data all day. They're checking trends. They're literally like doing whatever they can to just be better than you at 24 hours a day, where these restaurant guys are just like kicking it.
That's got to be a sigh of relief, like not having a competitor working against you to delist your product from Amazon. Like how many brands have you worked with where, you know, they said, oh, our competitor is trying to get us delisted.
Oh my gosh, the amount of lawsuits I've seen is just absolutely unreal. Out of control.
But I bet that feels good just to have one thing and focus on doing that one thing really well. And eventually that's where I want to be.
Yeah.
Just with my diner.
In a diner, baby.
In a diner.
Well, thanks for making it
serve we'll serve the what's it called? Scoville?
Scoville, yeah.
We'll serve the Scoville chicken with our waffles. That'll be the collab.
Hey,
let's do it. Let's do a collab in 15, 20 years when this comes to fruition. Tyler's waffles, Eddie's chicken. Let's go.
Tyler and Eddie's chicken and waffles, baby.
Maybe Chucky can do some syrup for us. Chucky, let's make it early bird syrup.
You're too funny, dude. Thank you for making this happen. Thanks for flying down for this.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
I'm so appreciative of our relationship. I think a lot of people definitely got a lot of value out of this. This was an incredible podcast. And hopefully, if you guys are listening still, you know, please go connect with Tyler. He's really one of a kind dude, one of the most giving guys. Pick his brain, you know, share ideas with him. And hopefully you can connect more with him.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much for watching another episode of the Bad Marketing Podcast. I hope you got immense value from it. And if you did, all we ask of you is that you share this with a friend that you think could find this very valuable. And depending on the platform that you're watching or listening to this on, please like, subscribe, or rate the podcast as best as possible. It really means a lot to us. We pour so much money, time, and effort into getting these guests here, filming all this, editing it, all for free just to give you free value. And all we ask in return is that you just share this with people. You give it a positive review so that we can continue to reach more people and impact more lives with all this effort that we're putting in. With that being said, thanks so much for tuning into the episode, and I look forward to continue to provide you more valuable content moving forward on the Bad Marketing Podcast. Make sure you subscribe.